Most men don't break because life is hard. They break because they have no structure, no rhythm, no system. They wake up whenever they feel like it, train when they're motivated, work when it's convenient, and then cry when they're average. You don't have a discipline problem, you have a routine problem. And that weakness is bleeding into every part of your life. You think mental strength is built in chaos. It's not. It's built in repetition and monotony, in doing the same hard thing over and over again until your brain stops negotiating and starts obeying. Routine is not boring. Routine is war. It's controlled pressure applied daily until your mind stops acting like a child and starts acting like a weapon. Let me expose something most men are too soft to understand. Speaking in tongues isn't mystical nonsense. It's identity transformation. It's when your internal language changes. When the voice in your head stops saying, "I'll try," and starts saying, "I execute." It's when you stop speaking the language of comfort and start speaking the language of dominance. That shift doesn't happen through inspiration. It happens through routine. Every time you wake up at the same brutal hour, every time you train whether you feel like it or not, every time you sit down to work while other men scroll and cope, you are reprogramming your internal voice. You're teaching your brain a new dialect, the dialect of certainty, the dialect of command, the dialect of a man who does not negotiate with weakness. Routine is the forge. It burns away excuses. It burns away emotion. It burns away the fantasy that you're special without effort. Most men want to feel powerful. Very few are willing to repeat the same disciplined actions for years with zero applause. That's why they stay small. They want adrenaline. The elite want structure. Long-term mental strength isn't built in one intense moment. It's built in thousands of identical mornings. It's built when your alarm goes off and you move instantly. No debate. No internal discussion. Action. That's speaking in tongues. That's when your behavior speaks louder than your feelings. When your routine becomes your language. And here's the part that will hurt your ego. If your life is unstable, your routine is weak. If your emotions control you, your habits are inconsistent. If you're broke, if you're weak, if you're lost, the depths of mediocrity. That's not bad luck. That's a sloppy system. Dominant men design their days. Weak men react to them. Control your morning, you control your mind. Control your training, you control your body. Control your schedule, you control your future. Routine is not restriction, it's leverage. It gives you predictable power. It removes decision fatigue. It turns chaos into calculated movement. You stop hoping you'll be strong. You become structured strength. When you repeat disciplined action long enough, something shifts. You stop identifying as a guy trying to improve. You become the man who operates at a standard. Identity locks in. And once identity locks in, quitting feels foreign. Skipping feels wrong. Slacking feels disgusting. That's the level you need to reach. Most men are addicted to variety because variety excuses. Inconsistency. They change plans every week. New gym program, new business idea, new strategy. They're not evolving. They're escaping the discomfort of repetition. Routine forces you to confront yourself daily. No hiding, no pretending, just you and the standard. Mental strength is not loud. It's silent. It's the calm execution of a man who knows exactly what he's doing at 6 a.m., at noon, at midnight. It's predictable dominance, the kind that scares people because it doesn't fluctuate with emotion. When your routine is tight, your mind becomes unshakable. You want long-term power? Stop chasing intensity. Build structure. You want confidence? Earn it daily through repetition. You want control? Design your day so precisely that weakness has no entry point. That's how kings are built. Not through hype, through systems. Here's the reality. If you can't control your daily routine, you will never control your future. If you can't command your own schedule, you will never command respect. Structure creates strength. Strength creates authority. Authority creates dominance. Most men say they want success, power, control. What they really want is comfort with results attached to it. That fantasy doesn't exist. If your days are random, your outcomes will be random. If you wake up without a fixed structure, check your phone before you check your goals. Train when you feel ready and work when pressure forces you to. You are not building a life. You are gambling with it. Routine is not a cage. It's a weapon. And most men are too undisciplined to hold it. Look at your schedule honestly. Is it designed with intent or is it a reaction to whatever screams the loudest? If your day is dictated by notifications, moods, or other people's demands, then you are operating in chaos. Chaos feels free in the moment. It feels flexible. It feels spontaneous. But long-term, chaos erodes confidence. It weakens identity. It produces inconsistency. And inconsistency produces mediocrity. Structure eliminates negotiation. When you know exactly what time you wake up, train, study, build, and execute, you remove the most dangerous enemy in your life, internal debate. Every time you hesitate, you drain mental energy. Every time you ask yourself, should I, instead of saying, I do, you chip away at your authority over your own mind. A defined routine shuts that down. It replaces doubt with automatic action. This is where most men collapse. They think strength is about intensity. They chase motivation. They wait for a surge of emotion to carry them into productivity. That is weakness disguised as ambition. Real power is boring to the undisciplined eye. It's the same wake-up time, the same training slot, the same focused work block, the same non-negotiable standards, day after day, month after month, year after year. Precision creates predictable results. If you train consistently, your body adapts. If you work consistently, your skill compounds. If you think consistently at a higher standard, your identity evolves. None of that happens in chaos. You cannot outwork a bad system. You cannot outmotivate a disorganized life. Routine also builds psychological stability. When your actions are structured, your mind becomes calmer. You know what's coming. You know what's required. You stop reacting emotionally to every obstacle because your foundation is solid. Men without routine are emotionally fragile because nothing in their life is anchored. Every small disruption feels massive because there's no framework holding them steady. High performers understand something average men ignore. Freedom comes from discipline, not from randomness. When your routine is tight, your decisions are fewer. When your decisions are fewer, your focus is sharper. When your focus is sharper, your output increases. That's leverage. That's control. That's dominance applied to time. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If your results are weak, your structure is weak. If you're inconsistent, distracted, or constantly starting over, that's not bad luck. That's poor design. Strong men design their days in advance. They do not improvise their future. A ruthless routine doesn't make life smaller. It makes you bigger. It forces alignment between intention and action. It eliminates excuses. It exposes laziness instantly. It trains your brain to associate identity with execution. Over time, that consistency hardens into confidence. Not loud confidence, not emotional hype, but quiet certainty built on repeated proof. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. If your system is loose, you fall into mediocrity. If your system is sharp, structured, and relentless, you rise whether you feel like it or not. That's the difference between men who talk about potential and men who operate at a level where potential is already converted into performance. The moment you start negotiating with yourself, you've already lost authority over your own mind. That's the uncomfortable reality most men avoid. They think strength is about lifting heavy weight, making loud statements, or posting discipline quotes online. It's not. Strength begins in silence, in the split second between a command and an action. When the alarm goes off, when the work gets difficult, when discomfort shows up, that moment decides who's in control. If there's a debate, you're not in control. Internal negotiation feels harmless. 5 more minutes. I'll start tomorrow. I'll train later. These phrases sound small. They feel reasonable, but they are cracks in your foundation. Every time you entertain them, you train your brain to believe that your standards are optional. And once your standards become optional, your discipline collapses. Discipline is not about forcing yourself emotionally. It's about eliminating choice where choice weakens you. High-level operators don't wake up and ask themselves whether they feel like executing. They build systems where execution is automatic. The decision was made long before the moment arrived. That's power. That's mental clarity. That's self-command. Most men misunderstand freedom. They think freedom means having options at all times. In reality, too many options create hesitation. Hesitation creates weakness. When you design your life with non-negotiable actions, fixed training times, fixed work blocks, fixed standards, you reduce friction, you reduce emotional interference. You eliminate the constant internal argument that drains energy. Negotiation feeds weakness because it centers your emotions. It makes your feelings the authority, and feelings fluctuate. They're unstable. They're influenced by sleep, stress, distractions, other people. If your behavior depends on how you feel, your performance will always be inconsistent. That inconsistency destroys confidence over time. Confidence isn't built from hype, it's built from evidence. And evidence comes from doing what you said you would do, especially when you didn't feel like it. When you act without debate, you reinforce a powerful internal message: my word to myself is law. That identity shift changes everything. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who executes. This is where discipline becomes ruthless. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's cold. The alarm rings, you move, the workout is scheduled, you show up, the work block begins, you focus. No internal speech, no emotional performance, just action aligned with intention. That alignment builds authority within your own mind. Men who constantly negotiate live in mental chaos. They overthink simple tasks. They waste energy convincing themselves to do things they already decided were important. That mental friction compounds. It drains willpower. It increases stress. It creates a gap between who they say they are and how they behave. That gap breeds insecurity. Eliminating negotiation closes that gap. It simplifies your mental environment. There is clarity in knowing that once something is set, it happens. That clarity builds calm, and calm under pressure is real strength. Look at elite performers in any field. They don't rely on bursts of motivation. They rely on standards. Their routines remove debate. Their training schedules don't change because they're tired. Their execution doesn't depend on applause. They move according to structure, not emotion. That's why their output is consistent. When you stop negotiating, you stop leaking power. Your energy goes toward execution instead of internal arguments. Your identity hardens. You become predictable to yourself in the best way possible. You trust your own word. And when a man trusts himself, his posture changes. His decisions sharpen. His presence becomes heavier. Internal negotiation is subtle weakness. Discipline without debate is silent dominance. You don't become powerful by thinking differently once. You become powerful by acting differently repeatedly. That's the part most men refuse to accept. They want transformation without repetition. They want identity without evidence. They want confidence without proof. That's fantasy. Your identity is not what you say about yourself. It's what you repeatedly do. If you go to the gym once, you're not disciplined. If you wake up early twice, you're not structured. If you grind hard for a week, you're not relentless. Identity is built through pattern, not performance spikes. Repetition is the mechanism that rewires who you believe you are. Every action leaves a mark. Every time you execute when you said you would, you deposit proof into your internal bank. Every time you hesitate or quit, you withdraw from it. Over time, those deposits and withdrawals shape your self-image, and self-image dictates behavior. That's why repetition is not just physical, it's psychological engineering. Most men are trapped in a fragile identity because they rely on emotion to define themselves. They feel motivated, so they think they're ambitious. They feel confident for a day, so they think they're strong. Then adversity hits, and that illusion collapses. Why? Because it wasn't built on repetition. It was built on mood. Repetition removes dependency on mood. When you train daily, whether you feel powerful or exhausted, you send a message to your brain. This is who I am. When you work consistently, even when results are slow, you reinforce the identity of a builder. When you maintain standards in private without recognition, you strengthen the foundation of self-respect. The brain adapts to repeated behavior. It starts to expect it. It begins to normalize it. What was once difficult becomes standard. What was once uncomfortable becomes routine. That's how identity shifts, not through dramatic declarations, through disciplined cycles. Look at men who truly command respect. Their confidence is not loud, it's stable. That stability comes from repetition. They've shown up so many times, executed so many times, endured so many times, that doubt has no room to grow. They don't need validation because their history validates them. Repetition also exposes weakness quickly. If you can't maintain a habit for 30 days, your discipline is shallow. If your effort spikes and collapses, your identity is unstable. That instability creates insecurity. Deep down, you know you're inconsistent. And inconsistency destroys belief in yourself. When repetition becomes your standard, everything changes. You stop identifying as someone trying to improve. You become the man who operates at a level. Missing a session feels wrong. Skipping work feels unnatural. Slacking feels like betrayal. That psychological shift is powerful. It locks you into upward momentum. This is why chasing novelty is dangerous. Constantly switching routines, strategies, and goals prevents repetition from doing its job. You stay in the beginner phase forever. You never allow your actions to compound. Compounding only happens when behavior is repeated long enough to solidify into identity. Repetition also builds resilience. The more times you face discomfort and push through, the less threatening discomfort becomes. Pain loses its emotional charge. Pressure becomes familiar. You don't panic under stress because you've rehearsed discipline daily. That rehearsal strengthens your nervous system. Men who avoid repetition stay fragile. They need excitement to move. They need inspiration to act. Without stimulation, they stall. But a man who has mastered repetition doesn't rely on external triggers. His discipline is internalized. His standards are embedded. You are what you repeatedly tolerate. You are what you repeatedly execute. If you repeatedly choose comfort, you become soft. If you repeatedly choose challenge, you become hardened. Over time, those choices sculpt your identity more accurately than any affirmation ever could. Repetition is not glamorous, it's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it is ruthless in its effect. It shapes the subconscious, it eliminates doubt, it turns effort into instinct. And once disciplined action becomes instinct, you are no longer fighting yourself. You are operating as the man you decided to become. If you don't control what enters your mind, you will never control what comes out of your life. That's not philosophy. That's reality. Most men think they're thinking their own thoughts. They're not. They're reacting to whatever they consumed 5 minutes ago. Notifications, news, social media, opinions, noise. And then they wonder why their focus is fractured and their discipline is weak. Your inputs shape your identity, whether you're aware of it or not. The brain is not neutral. It absorbs patterns. It mirrors exposure. If you start your morning scrolling through nonsense, you've already surrendered your mental edge. You've handed your attention to algorithms designed to keep you passive. And passivity is the enemy of dominance. A distracted man cannot lead. A distracted man cannot build. A distracted man cannot command respect. Every piece of content you consume is either sharpening you or softening you. There is no middle ground. The conversations you entertain, the environment you tolerate, the people you allow around you, they all leave residue. That residue becomes mindset. That mindset becomes behavior. Most men lose control long before they realize it. They allow distractions to fragment their day. They let emotional conversations drain their energy. They expose themselves to negativity, drama, and low standards, then expect to perform at a high level. That contradiction is self-sabotage. Control begins with awareness. What are you feeding your brain daily? Is it discipline? Is it skill development? Is it strategy? Or is it entertainment disguised as productivity? Be honest, because your results already reflect the answer. High-level performers guard their inputs aggressively. They don't casually consume information, they filter it. They are selective about who gets access to their attention. They understand that attention is currency. Wherever it flows, growth follows. If your attention is scattered, your progress will be scattered. Consider this: if you surround yourself with mediocrity, mediocrity becomes normal. If you consume content that glorifies laziness, excuses, or victimhood, those ideas embed themselves quietly. You may reject them consciously, but repetition lowers resistance. Over time, they influence your decisions in subtle ways. Control also applies to physical inputs: sleep, nutrition, training, environment. If you neglect your body, your mind weakens. If your space is chaotic, your focus suffers. If your schedule's inconsistent, your discipline erodes. Everything is connected. You cannot expect sharp mental performance from a sloppy physical system. Men often blame lack of motivation for their stagnation. Motivation is not the issue. Environment is. If your environment encourages distraction, comfort, and low standards, you will gravitate toward them. You must engineer your surroundings to support your goals. Remove temptation. Reduce noise. Design friction against weakness. Digital discipline is critical. Your phone can either be a tool or a leash. If you check it impulsively, you're conditioned. If you respond to every notification instantly, you're reactive. That reactivity trains your brain to prioritize urgency over importance. Important work requires depth. Depth requires uninterrupted focus. When you take control of your inputs, something shifts. Your thoughts become clearer. Your energy stabilizes. Your decisions sharpen. You stop reacting emotionally to every stimulus because you've reduced unnecessary stimulation. That calm focus creates authority. Control over inputs also builds confidence. When you know you've curated your environment intentionally, you trust your direction. You're not being pulled by trends or pressured by external noise. You operate from strategy, not impulse. Weak men let the world program them. Strong men choose their programming. They decide what they read, what they watch, who they listen to, and what they ignore. They understand that dominance begins internally, and internal dominance begins with control over what enters the mind. If your results are inconsistent, examine your inputs. If your focus is weak, examine your environment. If your discipline fluctuates, examine what you're consuming daily. Because until you control what shapes your thinking, you will remain shaped by forces that do not care about your success. Most men crumble in silence. Not under pressure, not under chaos, under boredom. The absence of excitement exposes weakness faster than adversity ever will. When there's no applause, no adrenaline, no immediate reward, that's when the truth surfaces. Can you still execute when nothing feels urgent? Can you still push when no one is watching? Monotony is where real strength is forged. Anyone can perform when emotions are high. Anyone can grind for a week when motivation is fresh. That's easy. The real test is repetition without stimulation, doing the same disciplined actions every day, without drama, without validation, without visible progress. That's where most men quit, not because they're incapable, but because they're addicted to intensity. Intensity is seductive. It makes you feel alive. It creates spikes of dopamine. It convinces you that you're moving forward. But intensity without consistency is chaos. It burns bright and dies fast. Monotony, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't impress people. It doesn't create cinematic moments. It builds foundations. The gym is a perfect example. The first few sessions are exciting. New program, new mindset, new identity forming. Then it becomes routine. The excitement fades. The soreness fades. The novelty fades. What's left is repetition. That's the turning point. Do you keep showing up when it feels ordinary? Or do you chase something new to feel stimulated again? Men who require constant excitement are mentally fragile. They need emotional highs to function. Without them, they stall. They procrastinate. They lose direction. That dependence is weakness. True mental strength is the ability to operate at a high standard regardless of emotional state. Monotony strengthens discipline because it removes emotional reward. You are forced to rely on structure, not feeling. You're forced to act because it's scheduled, not because it's thrilling. That builds internal authority. It conditions your brain to separate performance from mood. When you embrace monotony, you develop patience. You stop expecting instant results. You understand that progress compounds slowly. That patience is powerful. It keeps you steady while others burn out. It allows you to endure phases where nothing seems to change externally, but everything is changing internally. There's also a psychological edge in mastering boredom. When you can focus deeply on repetitive tasks without distraction, you gain a level of control most people never achieve. Deep work becomes normal. Long-term projects become manageable. You stop being pulled toward entertainment every time the task becomes dull. Modern environments are designed to destroy this ability. Constant notifications, endless content, immediate gratification. Your brain is trained to expect stimulation. When monotony appears, it feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is not danger. It's growth. It's your nervous system recalibrating to discipline. High-level performers understand this. They build routines that feel repetitive by design. They create schedules that remove variation. They simplify their decisions. They repeat core actions relentlessly. To outsiders, it looks boring. To them, it's strategic. Monotony also builds emotional resilience. When you face the same grind daily, you stop reacting dramatically to minor setbacks. Small obstacles lose their power. You've trained yourself to persist without excitement, so frustration doesn't derail you. That stability is intimidating. It signals control. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle repetition. You don't need chaos to prove yourself. You don't need pressure to perform. You've practiced consistency so thoroughly that your baseline is higher than most people's peak. Weak men seek stimulation. Strong men seek standards. When monotony becomes comfortable, you've crossed a threshold. You've detached your performance from emotion. You built mental endurance. And once endurance is embedded, very little can shake you. Power is predictable. Weakness is unpredictable. That's the distinction most men fail to understand. If your behavior changes with your mood, your environment, or the people around you, you are unstable. And instability is the opposite of dominance. Structure is what turns raw ambition into controlled force. You don't dominate by accident. You dominate by design. When your mornings are structured, your body is trained on schedule, your work blocks are defined, and your standards are fixed, something shifts internally. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You start operating. Operation implies control. Control implies authority. Authority commands respect without asking for it. Most men live reactively. They wake up and check messages. They respond to whatever demands attention first. They let urgency dictate priority. By the end of the day, they're exhausted but unaccomplished. That pattern repeats. Over time, it builds frustration and self-doubt, not because they lack potential, but because they lack structure. Structure eliminates randomness. When you know exactly what your day requires before it begins, you move with intention. There's no scrambling, no emotional scrambling, no mental chaos. You execute predefined tasks with precision. That precision compounds into results. Results compound into confidence. Dominance is not aggression. It's control under pressure. It's the ability to maintain standards when circumstances fluctuate. Structure makes that possible. If your schedule is tight, external noise has less influence. If your routines are disciplined, temptation has less space. You reduce vulnerability to impulse. There's also a psychological benefit to predictable self-behavior. When you consistently meet your own standards, you build trust in yourself. That trust stabilizes your identity. You stop second-guessing decisions because your history proves you can handle responsibility. That internal stability translates outward. Your communication sharpens. Your posture changes. Your presence becomes heavier. Structure also enhances efficiency. Decision fatigue is real. The more trivial choices you make daily, the less energy remains for high-level thinking. When your training time, meals, work blocks, and personal development are pre-planned, you conserve cognitive bandwidth. That bandwidth can be directed towards strategy, growth, and expansion. Men without structure are constantly firefighting. They react to problems instead of preventing them. Their finances are chaotic. Their fitness is inconsistent. Their focus is scattered. Then they blame stress or bad luck. In reality, they are experiencing the natural consequences of disorganization. Designing structure requires honesty. You must assess where your time leaks, where your standards drop, where your discipline breaks. Then you build systems that close those gaps. Fixed wake-up times, scheduled training, deep work sessions protected from interruption, limited exposure to distraction, clear performance metrics. That's not rigidity. That's strategic alignment. When structure is embedded, your baseline performance rises. You don't need extraordinary effort to produce results because your daily system is engineered for progress. Small actions compound automatically. You're no longer relying on bursts of willpower, you're relying on design. There is intimidation in predictability. When others know you show up consistently, deliver consistently, train consistently, and maintain standards consistently, they stop doubting you. More importantly, you stop doubting yourself. That consistency becomes your reputation. Dominance begins internally before it manifests externally. It starts with commanding your own schedule, your own habits, your own impulses. If you cannot govern your day, you cannot govern larger responsibilities. If you cannot maintain personal structure, you cannot lead effectively. When your life is structured with intent, your behavior stabilizes. When behavior stabilizes, results stabilize. When results stabilize, authority solidifies. And once authority solidifies, you are no longer hoping to rise. You are operating from a position of controlled strength that others can feel without you saying a word. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop looking for motivation. Build routines so ruthless that your emotions don't matter anymore. Turn your habits into commands. Turn your days into proof. Speak the language of discipline until it becomes who you are. And understand this clearly. The man who masters his routine masters himself. And the man who masters himself, he doesn't ask for power, he takes it.